Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Rest. In this video, I want to go over what is one of the most broken builds that you can play on the Berserker right now. If you watch my other build, the Skeep Berserker, this is pretty much that build with new weapons, skill points, upgrades in general, enchantments, and it is multi-class with the spell shot. Now, I want to say you can multi-class this with any class you want to. This is mainly a Berserker-based skill tree build, but again, like I said, mine is multi-class with the spell shot. I think you all are going to like this build a lot, and if you literally just like to run at people and get up in their faces and hold down the trigger, this is 100% the build for you. Also, I'm going to be hiding 10 skeleton keys throughout this whole video. These keys were provided by 2K, so thank you very much. I will have them just popping up randomly. Some will probably be hitting throughout the whole video, so be sure to keep an eye out and watch all the way through so you have the most chances to grab one of these keys. But if you can't grab a key and you would like to grab the build, these builds are located in my Discord channel if you would like to download them. The link for the Discord will be in the description. And also, really quick, as I'm recording this, 89.8% of people that watch my videos are not subscribed. So if you enjoy and you find yourself coming back, consider subscribing and dropping a like. It really helps me out and our community grow, and it is truly appreciated. But all right, enough with the plugs, and let's just jump right into this build. Also, remember to keep an eye out for the skeleton keys. But okay, starting off, guys, this is what our character looks like. I actually really like the armor, and I'm going to try my hardest to explain the way this build is going to work overall than I did in my other video, because I think I could explain the little things a little bit better. So hopefully this video will let you guys know everything that you need to know. But all right, starting off with my skills, actually, I want to talk about our action skill, and that is Polymorph. Polymorph is actually very good. It's very underrated. I know a lot of people take Ambidextrous due to the fact, you know, you can cast 2 spells, but if you're not playing a spell-based build, unless you're using the Buffmeister bug, Polymorph is going to be better pretty much at all times. So this is basically going to turn your enemy into a Skeep, which is very cool. But the main thing is when you actually shoot that Skeep, or when your Polymorph doesn't hit an enemy, you get stacks of spell weaving. Stacks of spell weaving is going to be very good, because if you don't know what spell weaving does, you get more spell damage, and this can stack up to 5 times. It's 10% per stack, and this can also be buffed with spell shot power. I would mainly try to focus on Berserker power as much as you can, but spell shot power is going to increase your spell weaving, which is good. Now, to make Polymorph even better, we're actually going to be taking the capstone of Blood of the Fallen from the Brr-Zerker skill tree. So this basically makes it so when you kill an enemy, you get axe skill cooldown rate, and if the axe skill is active, you basically extend that duration. So it's 20% for both. If you kill an enemy while it's on cooldown, you get 20% cooldown back. If you kill an enemy while it's active, you get 20% duration back. Very good. It is especially good with something like the Polymorph, because not only can you keep it up in the air, which is going to help a lot without some of our weapons, it also basically makes it so you can get it back very quickly to keep reproccing spell weaving stacks. And on top of that, you just get an enemy out the battlefield, which is nice. And also, if you haven't watched my Don't Sleep on the Skeep video, Polymorph actually has a lot of cool things it can do. You know, for example, if somebody's immune to, say, cryo, you can polymorph them, and then you're going to do a bunch of cryo damage, which is very good because we're going to heavily focus in cryo since we are playing on the Berserker. But getting over to the gear, because we just talked about how polymorph is going to be good for, you know, keeping it up in the air, you have things like enchanted while axe skills active increases your fire damage by 50%. This could be better, but if you're using the heck waiter right here, which I use a lot in this build, those two are going to pair really well together. Again, all you do is just polymorph for target, shoot it to get your spell proc, and then just go ham and keep that polymorph up literally all the time because of the Berserker skill. Now, I also do have one on the shield where enchanted while your axe skill is active, you gain increased frost damage. So frost damage is going to be very good for things like the Queen's Cry and the liquid cooling right here. Liquid cooling, if you don't know, is one of the best pistols in the game, and Queen's Cry is just a gun I really like a lot, but mainly you're going to be using liquid cooling and the heck waiter pretty much at all times. So on the liquid cooling I have on axe skill start, you increase your damage dealt by 20% for 20 seconds. So you can kind of see when you go into a boss fight, what you need to do is polymorph a target, proc your axe skill start to get your 20 seconds damage. Since it is active, you're going to be getting 50% more damage with your shield right here. And again, all you have to do is shoot the polymorph one time to get your spell weaving stacks and proc your spell, and you're going to be set. Now, speaking of spell, I have an enchant on my spell where on spell cast, you increase gun damage by 30% for 10 seconds. So again, the way this is like overall going to look now is when you go into a boss fight, you're going to try to polygrasp an enemy, just shoot the enemy, keep the polymorph alive, then cast your spell, and you're going to have 50% more frost damage, 30% more gun damage, and an additional 20% more gun damage, and you're going to be able to destroy stuff with stuff like the liquid cooling. Now, I also am going to be running a Masterwork Hambo right here. I'm literally only running this to keep spell weaving stacks up. It has 1 magazine and a pretty fast reload speed. So since this pretty much has infinite ammo, you're not going to be reloading a lot to get spell weaving stacks. You're really focusing on polymorph to keep those spell weaving stacks up, but to start the spell weaving stack chain, you can use this to just constantly shoot it, and you can get some spell weaving stacks. Now, talking more about our melee weapon, this is just the pickaxe melee weapon. So when you melee an enemy, you're going to spawn gold. When the Fate Maker picks up the gold, they're going to get increased movement speed, spell cooldown rate, and axe skill cooldown rate by 6% for 5 seconds, and this can stack up to 5 times. So 30% cooldown rate for your axe skill is going to be very good because you want to get your polymorph up as possible. You're pretty much going to always be picking money up. It's just a nice passive thing to have. Even your spell cooldown rate is not terrible either. Now for our shield, we're actually going to be running the Cursed Wit. So this is going to make it when your ward is depleted, you gain 17% damage reduction and 100% increased damage dealt to nearby enemies. Plus, this will also give you 10% fire rate, which is very good for this build. Now, to take advantage of the Wit, we're going to be using glass cannons. So this makes it so the Fate Maker no longer can automatically recharge their ward, but they're going to gain drastically increased spell damage. Spell damage is obviously very good on the spell shot, but the main thing is you can no longer regenerate that ward. So once that ward gets down to 0, you're never going to regenerate it, and you always have this 100% damage increase, which is very, very good. And if we actually look at one of our other skills with the old ways right here, this basically gives you more damage reduction and more damage the closer you are to an enemy. So it's 30% for each. So you're getting 30% more damage with that skill, and then 100% more damage with your shield, since your shield is always going to be not active anyway, and you're gonna have a lot of damage buffs. Now on our rings, I don't have the best rolled stuff. As you see, we have dark magic, spell crit, sniper, axe skill cooldown rate, and assault rifle magazine. Axe skill cooldown rate is pretty much the only best one on here, but the main thing is we have increased spell damage, which is good. If it was just gun damage, it would be a little bit better. This build is already insane. It still has room to improve, with obviously getting everything volatile and getting, you know, god rolls of everything, but the spell damage is going to be nice because of one of our other skills, which is magic bullets. So a portion of all increase the Fate Makers receive to spell damage also applies to their gun damage. So it's 45% of your spell damage is added to gun damage. So obviously having a bunch of spell weakness stacks is very, very good because you're getting gun damage with magic bullets. Your rings are now giving you gun damage, which is very good. And also, if you saw, while ward is not full, the effects are increased by 100% on both of these. So these are going to pair really well with things like your Cursed Wit and the glass cannon skill, because now these are giving 30% each, which is 60% in total, on top of the 100% damage increase right here. Now moving on to our amulet, we're going to be running the sacrificial skeep. If you didn't watch my video on this is basically just a very, very tanky amulet. Basically what it does is when you get below 50% health, every 30 seconds you're going to spawn a skeep that pulses 5 times and literally heals you to max. This is going to be very, very good for survivability, since we are taking glass cannon. And speaking of survivability, we're also going to take things like unarmored defense. So this basically reserves 50% of your ward and returns that 150% into maximum health. Since your ward is going to be worthless, this is actually getting a lot of benefits out of that, because you're just going to have 150% more health now, essentially, which is very, very good. Now I'm also going to be running a blood frenzy, so whenever I get a kill, 9% of my maximum health is restored, which is very good for survivability. And then on top of that, you have the enraged trauma restored, and this is going to restore for 3 seconds. And if you don't know what enrage is, it is the Brr-Zerker's class feat, which basically makes it on axe skill start, you're going to deal bonus frost damage. Since we're going to constantly be keeping spell weakness stacks up with polymorph and spamming polymorphs everywhere, we're also now going to have extra frost damage with Rage of the Ancients right here, or the Brr-Zerker's class feat, and you're going to be able to literally just to have this up 100% of the time. So now, on top of all the enchantments I was just talking about, all the other damage bonuses, this is now just giving you a constant additional damage to frost 24/7. It's actually insane how strong this is combined with something like polymorph, because it's very, very easy to proc it, and you can just literally slay everything with this character feat. Now, staying on the topic of survivability, like I already said, we're taking the old ways to get that damage reduction the closer you are to enemies, but we're also going to be taking relentless rage. So if you go and save your soul, you actually are going to restore some of your meter when you shoot an enemy, and when you get up, you're going to become enraged, which again is the Brr-Zerker's class feat. So instead of actually having to use polymorph all the time now, if you do ever manage to go down, you're gonna always be proccing Rage of the Ancients again, which is very, very strong. And just being able to constantly regen your save your soul bar when you shoot an enemy is also very strong in general too. And between all those skills and your amulet, you become very tanky, even though you are literally right up at enemies and just spraying bullets down on them as much as possible. And it's going to be very easy to spray those bullets with something like the liquid cooling, because if you don't know how this works, when you get crits, it's actually going to make that heat meter go down. So the more you hit crits, the more you can keep shooting this thing. And since it is Skulldugger, it has an infinite magazine, and you could literally just lay waste on enemy, and it starts to increase fire rate faster and faster. Now we are also going to have a bunch of fire rate increases in our skill tree, which I will get into in a second. But for our class mod, we're going to be running this one right here, or our armor piece. So this is basically going to give you more critical hit damage by 50% and 50% less critical hit chance. That doesn't matter if you can hit your crits. The 50% crit chance doesn't matter at all, but so you're just getting the additional 50% damage, which is nice. This is giving Berserker a spell shot power, which is also very nice, and the skills it gives are very good, because we're actually going to be taking things like Ancestral Frost. So with additional points in Ancestral Frost, you get 28% more frost damage, and I do have this maxed out at 5. Very, very good. This whole build is based around cryo or frost damage, so you're getting just 28% more damage with that. You're also getting Icebreaker right here. So when you start to slow enemies down or freeze them, you can get up to 50% increased damage dealt to them, which is absolutely ridiculous, especially with the additional points in it. You can just slay enemies out, and you're going to be obviously freezing everybody with this build since you're only doing frost damage. But then to help with freezing people even faster, we're taking things like Cold Snap, so your frost efficiency is increased, and this is double when you are enraged. So you're getting 48% frost efficiency, which is in return making them slow down faster. So you're going to have this 50% damage up pretty much at all times with taking these two skills together, and having that additional frost damage with Ancestral Frost is also very, very good. Now you are also getting an additional point in imbued weapons. So when you cast a spell, you get 2% bonus damage with whatever spell you're using. This is okay, but it's not like the greatest thing. Literally, if you could have additional point in one of these, it would be way, way better. Now finally, our spell is going to be the Buffmeister. So this basically makes it when you cast your spell, you get a bunch of different benefits, which is very, very good. Basically, the main thing is you're getting increased damage. This is also cryo. I would definitely recommend cryo or frost, since this is a frost-based build. We're going to be doing a lot of damage with frost. And this is just overall one of the best spells for gun damage builds, because you're not really trying to use your spell to do damage. You just want to increase your spell damage. You just want to increase your weapon damage as much as possible. And this is not taking advantage of bugs or anything. This is just the spell itself, and it is very, very good. Now again, Polymorph is going to always proc that spell, which is very nice, because if you keep the enemy alive, you can just constantly keep shooting it whenever your Buffmeister goes away, and you have a chance to get the buff back. You pretty much always get it back, like nearly 100% of the time. So you can have almost 100% uptime up with the Buffmeister, on top of also you just being able to cast the spell itself. It is very, very strong paired with Polymorph. It is very, very good, and it's literally almost like you at Phase Grasp back in Borderlands 3. Now again, when you are doing boss damage, I would recommend actually casting the spell as well on top of doing the normal Polymorph thing, because on this enchantment you have on spell catch, you can increase gun damage. So again, just do the normal Polymorph thing, then just additionally cast the spell. When you're playing through just normal mobbing, you don't really have to cast the spell unless you want to get that 30% increased damage. But the main thing is just whenever you're in a boss fight. But when you're not, Polymorph is just going to absolutely destroy everything for you. Now if we actually take a look at our armor again, we have 50% reduced crit chance, 50% increased damage. I'm actually going to take a look at our hero stats really quick. I'm pretty much maxing strength and dexterity out to get more crit damage and more crit chance, to try to negate what the armor is doing, on top of just getting even more damage. Then the rest of points I just put in Constitution to get more maximum HP, which is good for survivability. If you want to take things like intelligence, this could be good too, to get more cooldown rate for things like your Polymorph and your Buffmeister, but you don't really need it since you do have the capstone. But now just going over the rest of the skills, we've already talked about magic bullets and how it's going to interact with all your spell damage to give you gun damage. I do have 2 points in prestidigitation right here because I need to get down to the bottom, but this is giving you a little bit more reload speed, which is nice for things like the Masterwork Handbow right here, to get your spell weaving stacks up before you go into a boss fight, or just keeping them up in general. Now you're also going to be taking 5 points to just warm it up. Now this is where the fire rate increases come in. So the Fate Maker is going to gain decreased fire rate for every stack of spell weaving. Since you're going to pretty much always have max spell weaving stacks with things like Polymorph, you're going to get a bunch of fire rate from the skill, and we're going to have more spell weaving stacks because we're going to take things like Hot Threat Count, which is an additional 3 spell weaving stacks. So instead of having 5, we're going to have 8. So 4% per stack at 8 stacks is 32% increased fire rate, which is insanely good for something like the liquid cooling, and you can just literally slay down enemies. Now I have 5 points in Font Mana because I need to get down to a Hot Threat Count, but I have 1 extra skill point, so I just do it in Font Mana. So this is giving you more spell cooldown rate and access skill cooldown rate. You can kind of put this wherever you want, but you don't want to take things like Mage Armor because you don't want your ward to regenerate, and Spell Sniper doesn't really do much. So Font Mana is just by far the best option, so you can get Polymorph back even faster. Again, it doesn't matter too much since you are taking a Blood of the Fallen, but having that increased spell cooldown rate is kind of nice for the Buffmeister if you ever need to proc it. But that is for the spell shot. Again, like I said, you can multi-class this with whatever you want to. I'm just using spell shot for this because I do like Polymorph, but I would imagine you could probably use some other action skills too. Polymorph is just my favorite. Now, getting into our final skills for the Berserker, we've already went over Ancestral Frost, which is just giving you that nice frost damage increase. Icebreaker, which is giving you that 50% more damage to slowed enemies or frozen targets. Cold Snap, which just makes it even easier to freeze enemies, to proc things like Icebreaker even faster. Plus, you get additional movement speed, which is nice. Then we've already went over Unarmored Defense to get that health, since we're not really worried about our ward with Glass Cannon. Then the old ways to get that damage increase and damage reduction closer to an enemy. Blood Frenzy to help keep our Rage of the Ancients up, and you get more maximum health back. Relentless Rage, so you can be and save your soul for longer, and you proc in Rage as well, or Rage of the Ancients when you get back up, which is nice. And we've talked about the capstone a lot. Again, you get that cooldown rate and that axe skill duration, which is going to really help proc things like your enchantments when your axe skill is active, because you just keep the polymorph up in a boss fight and you have a ton of damage. You can always reproc Buffmeister by shooting it. And on top of that, you can also just use your Buffmeister spell as well. So you have infinite uptime with Buffmeister and this capstone with polymorph. And then finally, Iron Squall is our last skill we need to talk about, and that is that your fire rate is increased and your melee attack speed is increased by 15%. And when you're enraged, it's double. So now you're getting 30% increased fire rate, because again, you're going to be enraged 24/7 with this build. So you're getting 30% fire rate right here, and then 32% right here. So that is 62% increased fire rate, which is absolutely ridiculous. And if we take a look at our armor, we're going to get 10% right here, and then 10% right here. So that's 82% increased fire rate. It is insane. While you're constantly going to be doing additional frost damage, Rage of the Ancients, you're going to have a bunch of damage with spell beam stacks and magic bullets. You're never going to have your ward up, so you're going to always proc things like your rings and shields right here. Even having more crit damage right here is going to be very, very good. And to play that further, we're going to have strength and dexterity maxed out, bunch of berserker power, a bunch of spell shot power. And as you can see, this build synergy is just insane. Literally every single skill point, every single armor piece, every single weapon, every single enchant, it all synergizes together, and it literally makes one of the best Berserker builds that you can play in this game right now. This is Chaos level 20 ready, and it can absolutely destroy any Chaos chamber you go into, and I would highly recommend trying this out if you do like to play a fast-paced build and literally just get up people's faces and just rain down bullets on enemies. Like I said, I wanted to make a shotgun build of this, which I still probably will at some point, but this build specifically is just too good to not update it. If you were wondering, I did change Instinct and Prestidigitation. I used to have these maxed out for reload speed, but since the liquid cooling literally has, you know, infinite ammo essentially, you don't even need reload speed. So having that increased frost efficiency from Cold Snap, very, very good. So that is pretty much, again, the whole build. It is located in my Discord channel if you guys would like to download it. I hope you guys do give it a shot, and if you do, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I know the spell shot is by far like the most strongest class in the game right now, so I really wanted to make another class ridiculously strong, and I think this does achieve that. And again, I am using spell shot in this video, but you can multi-class this with anything. Things like the Salamence is going to be very good, the Spore Warden is going to be very good, even the Graveborn might be very good. But that is going to do all for me. This video has went on a very long time. I'm going to need to go get some water after recording this one, and if you managed to make it this far, just say I made it with a smiley face. Let's light that comment section up and get people wondering. And if you did watch it all the way through, I hope you did manage to get a skeleton key. Hopefully I can do more giveaways like this in the future if you didn't. But if you guys would like to see more Wonderlands content, be sure to stick around, check the channel out. But anyway, that's going to do all for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.